Groza and the uniformed cops hit the floor, all three of them. I couldn't tell if anyone had been hit up front. The Latino at the door yelled, "Cut this shit out! Cut the shit!" He was down low on the floor himself, screaming without raising his head into the line of fire. "Thomas!" I yelled at the top of my voice. Sharif Thomas was moving with surprising speed and alertness. Quick, sure reflexes, even under the influence. He turned the shotgun on me. There is nothing to compare with the sight of a shotgun pointed right at you. I had no choice now. I squeezed the trigger of the Glock. Sharif Thomas took a thunderbolt in his right shoulder. He spun hard left, but he didn't go down. He pivoted smoothly. He'd been here before. So had I. I fired a second time. Hit him in the throat, or lower jaw. Thomas flew back and crashed into the paper-thin walls. The whole building shook. His eyeballs flipped back, his mouth sagged open wide. He was gone before he hit the crack house floor. I had killed our only connection to Gary Sinigi. I heard Carmine Groza shouting into his radio. The words chilled me. "Officer down at 412 Macon! Officer down!" The uniformed man lay on his back on the littered floor near the front door. His eyes were already glazed, and I thought he was in shock. Blood was trickling from the corner of his mouth. I stood near Groza, still holding my Glock. I was trying not to be angry with Groza for overreacting and causing this to happen. I had to get myself under control before I spoke. EMS arrived in a matter of minutes. We watched while two medics tried desperately to save the patrolman's life. He was young and looked to be only in his mid-20s. In the rear of the crack house, another medic was trying to save Sharif Thomas. But I already knew that Thomas was gone. I finally spoke to Groza, low and serious. "We know that Thomas is dead, but there's no reason Sinigi has to know. This could be how we get to him." If Sinigi thought that Thomas was alive at a New York hospital, Groza nodded. "Let me talk to somebody downtown. Maybe we could get the word to the press. It's worth a shot." At 7 that night, I was back in Penn Station. I saw Christine coming up the stairs from the train tunnels. I began to smile in spite of the locale. I smiled and shifted my weight from foot to foot, almost dancing. I felt lightheaded and excited, filled with hope and desire that I haven't felt in a long time. She had really come. Christine was carrying a small black bag with Sojourner Truth School printed on it. She was traveling light. She was wearing a white short-sleeved dress with a jewel neckline and her usual flats in black patent leather. I noticed people looking at her. They always did. We kissed in a corner of the train station, keeping our privacy as best we could. Our bodies pressed together, and I could feel her warmth, her bones, her flesh. I heard the bag she was carrying drop at her feet. Her brown eyes looked into mine, and they were wide and questioning at first, but then became very soft and light. "I was a little afraid you wouldn't be here," she said. "I had visions of you off in some police emergency, and me standing here alone in the middle of Penn Station." "There was no way I would have let that happen," I said to her. "I'm so glad you're here." We kissed again, pressing even harder together. I wanted to take her where we could be alone. My body nearly convulsed. It was that bad, that good. The Rainbow Room at 8:30 on a Saturday night. Christine and I waltzed off the glitzy elevator arm in arm. We were immediately swept into another era, another lifestyle, maybe another life. Hundreds of mini spotlights kicked off from the dazzling chrome and crystal. It was over the top, and just about perfect. We were directed to a desk that looked down onto the Deco ballroom, but also had panoramic views of New York. The room was jam-packed on a Saturday night. Every table on the dance floor was filled. We were escorted to a table in front of a large window that overlooked the glittering east side of Manhattan. A 5-piece Latin band was on stage, and they were cooking pretty good. The slowly revolving dance floor was still full. "It's funny, beautiful, and ridiculous, and I think it's as special as anywhere I've been," Christine said once we were seated. "That's about all the superlatives you're going to hear from me tonight." "You haven't even seen me dance," I said. "I already know that you can dance," Christine laughed and told me. Women always know which men can dance and which men can't. We ordered drinks. Straight scotch for me, Harvey sherry for Christine. We picked out a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, and then we spent a few delicious minutes just taking in the spectacle of the Rainbow Room. The Latin combo was replaced by a big band combo, which played swing and even took a swipe at the blues. A whole lot of people still knew how to jitterbug and waltz and even tango, and some of them were pretty good. You ever been here before? I asked Christine as the waiter came with our drinks. Only while I was watching the Prince of Tides, alone in my bedroom at home, she said and smiled again. How about you? Come here often, sailor? Just the one time I was chasing down this split-personality axe murderer in New York. He went right out that picture window over there, third from the left. Christine laughed. I wouldn't be surprised if it was true, Alex. I wouldn't be a bit surprised. The band started to play Moonglow, which is a pretty song, and we had to get up and dance. I tucked her in close, and my left arm encircled her waist. My right hand clasped hers. I felt her soft intake of breath. I could tell she was a little nervous, too. I started to hum softly. I might have been floating a little, too. My lips touched hers, and my eyes closed. I could feel the silk of her dress under my fingers. And yes, I could dance pretty well. But so could she. I lightly brushed her cheek with my fingers. The music was working, and Christine seemed to flow with me. Graceful, moonlit choreography. All my body parts were moving. I was finding it hard to breathe. Christine and I were in harmony together. We both could dance well enough, but together it was something special. I moved slowly and smoothly with her. The palm of her hand felt magnetized to mine. I spun her slowly, a playful half-turn underneath my arm. We came back together and our lips inches apart. I could feel the warmth of her body right through my clothes. Our lips met again, just for an instant, and the music stopped. Another song began. Now that's a hard act to follow, she said as we sashayed back to our table after the slow dance. I knew you could dance. Never a doubt in my mind, but I didn't know you could dance. You haven't seen anything. Wait until they play a samba, I told her. I was still holding her hand, couldn't let go. I think I can samba, she said. We danced a lot. We held hands constantly, and I think we even ate dinner. We definitely danced some more, and I could not let go of Christine's hand. She couldn't let go of mine. We talked nonstop, and later, I couldn't remember most of what had been said. I think that happens high above New York City in the Rainbow Room. The first time I looked at my watch all night, it was nearly 1 o'clock, and I couldn't believe it. That same mysterious time-loss thing had happened a couple of times when I'd been with Christine. I paid our bill, our big bill, and I noticed that the Rainbow Room was nearly empty. Where had everybody gone? Can you keep a secret? Christine whispered as we were going down to the lobby, in the walnut-paneled elevator. We were alone in the car, with its soft yellow light. I was holding her in my arms. I keep lots of secrets, I said. Well, here it is, Christine said as we reached the bottom floor, with just the lightest bump. She held me inside after the door had opened. She wasn't going to let me out of the softly lit elevator until she finished saying what she had to say. I really like that you got me my own room at the Astor, she said. But Alex, I don't think I'll be needing it. Is that okay? We stood very still in the elevator and began to kiss again. The door shut, and the elevator slowly climbed back up to the roof. So we kissed going up, and we kissed on the way back down to the lobby, and it wasn't nearly long enough round trip. You know what, though, she finally said as we reached the ground floor of Rockefeller Center a second time. What, though, I asked her. That's what's supposed to happen when you go to the Rainbow Room. We were standing at the door of my hotel room, and I was completely lost in the moment. I had let go of Christine's hand to open the door, and I was lost. I fumbled the key slightly and missed the lock. She gently placed her hand on mine, and we glided the key into the lock, turned the tumblers together. The hotel door slowly opened, and I had thought that the two of us were giving up something of our past now. Christine turned to me at the threshold, her beautiful face tilted toward mine. I reached for her and balanced her chin with my fingertips. I felt as if I hadn't been able to breathe properly all night, not from the moment she arrived at Penn Station. The heavy wooden door of the hotel room seemed to close all by itself.
Paris, France. Dr. Abel Sante was 35 years old, with longish black hair, boyish good looks, and a beautiful girlfriend named Regina Becker, who was a painter, and a very good one, he thought. He had just left Regina's apartment and was winding his way home on the back streets of the 6th arrondissement at about midnight. The narrow streets were quiet and empty, and he loved this time of day for collecting his thoughts, or sometimes for not thinking at all. Abel Sante was musing on the death of a young woman earlier today, a patient of his, 26 years old. He had a perspective about death that he thought was a good one. Why should leaving the world and rejoining the cosmos be any scarier than entering the world, which wasn't very scary at all? Dr. Sante didn't know where the man, a street person in a soiled gray jacket and torn baggy jeans, had come from. Suddenly the man was at his side, nearly attached to his left elbow. "Beautiful," the man said. "I'm sorry, excuse me?" Abel Sante said, startled, coming out of his inner thoughts in a hurry. "It's a beautiful night, and our city is so perfect for a late walk." "Yes, well, it's been nice meeting you," Sante said to the street person. He'd noticed that the man's French was slightly accented. Perhaps he was English or even American. "You shouldn't have left her apartment. Should have stayed the night. A gentleman always stays the night, unless, of course, he's asked to leave." Dr. Abel Sante's back and neck stiffened. He took his hands from his trouser pockets. Suddenly he was afraid. He shoved the street person away with his left elbow. "What are you talking about? Why don't you just get out of here?" "I'm talking about you and Regina. Regina Becker, the painter. Her work's not bad, but not good enough, I'm afraid." "Get the hell away from me!" Abel Sante quickened his pace. He was only a block from his home. The other man, the street person, kept up with him easily. "You should have given her babies, that's my opinion." "Get away! Go!" Suddenly Sante had both fists raised and clasped tightly. This was insane. He was ready to fight if he had to. The street person swung out and knocked him down. Dr. Sante's pulse was racing rapidly. He couldn't see very well out of his left eye where he'd been struck. "Are you a complete maniac? Are you out of your mind?" he screamed at the man, who suddenly looked powerful and impressive even in the soiled clothes. "Yes, of course," the man answered. "Of course I'm out of my mind. I'm Mr. Smith, and you're next." Dr. Abel Sante. Gary Sinigi hurried like a truly horrifying city rat through the low, dark tunnels that whined like intestines beneath New York's Bellevue Hospital. He had outfitted himself for his big morning. Crisply pressed white pants, white lab coat, white sneakers, a laminated hospital photo ID around his neck on a beaded silver chain. He was here on morning rounds, Bellevue. This was his idea of rounds, anyway. Gary Sinigi stepped into a stainless steel elevator in the basement of the well-known Manhattan hospital. A pair of porters shared the narrow car with him, and Sinigi had a moment of paranoia. They might be New York cops working undercover. He eyed the porters with a casual and disinterested, city-cool look. They can't be policemen, he thought. Nobody could look that dumb. They were what they looked like, slow-moving, slow-thinking hospital morons. One of them was pushing around a stainless steel cart with two bum wheels. It was a wonder that any patient ever made it out of a New York City hospital alive. He knew one patient who wasn't going to leave Bellevue alive. The news report said that Sheriff Thomas was being kept here by the police. Well, Thomas was going to suffer before he left this so-called Vale of Tears. Sheriff was about to undergo a world of suffering. Tsuniji scanned the